everyone. Come on in, check in, post the comments. Let us know that you are here. Simone Matthew here, coming to you on what seems to be just a very crazy day in Dominica. So, as we're waiting for the update, based on everything that's going on with Dr. Thomson Fontaine, I thought I would come on just a little bit earlier. I'm still hoping that Lennon and Alvin Thomas can come in and join us. But just go ahead and share the live, let everyone know that we're here, because I think we're seeing a lot going on in Dominica, but I don't think that we're really getting the perspective from Dominicans at home and abroad. So this is your opportunity to let us know what you think about everything that is going on the ground in Dominica. So I thought I would just come on a little bit early instead of waiting until 7 o'clock, because like you, I am anxious. I am waiting. I want to hear and I want to see what is going on in Dominica as it relates to the arrest of Dr. Thomson Fontaine. So I thought we would just come on for a little while just to hear from you, to hear how you're feeling about everything that is going on, and just to get your views on everything that is going on with regards to the case of Dr. Thomson Fontaine. As you know, he was arrested at the airport on Saturday, and he has been in the holding cell. I think he expected to be released on Saturday evening, because the plan was for him to do his radio show, his Q95 radio show, on Sunday morning. But unfortunately, he is still in custody. So I'm sure we have lots of questions. We have a lot of concerns that we would like to share. So I just thought that while we are waiting for everyone to give us an update on the ground in terms of what is going on, we can spend a couple of minutes just kind of hearing from you, hearing what your thoughts are in terms of everything that is going on. So we see we have a few people logged in already, so thank you for being here. We have Sandra Norris. Good afternoon, Dr. Simone. Hi, Sandra. And we have Norma Fontaine Filbert. So thank you for being here. Don't forget, as you come in, share the live, because this is really about just getting your thoughts, getting your opinion on everything that is going on. And I have to tell you, it seems like there are two streams of thoughts in the process, and Lennon is here with us. So let us welcome him. Hi, Lennon. How are you?
Hey, good afternoon. How you doing?
Yes. I'm sorry to have to change the time. I made the time a little bit earlier because I think we're all anxious to hear what is going on the ground. So I figure while we were waiting for the updates, we can just go ahead and just get a feedback from everyone to see how they're feeling about what is going on in Dominica. So I started to say that it seems like there are two camps of arguments as it relates to what we are seeing, right? So on one hand, I'm getting the sense, and I want to hear from our audience as well on this, I'm getting the sense that some people are saying, well, it's a bogus charge and it should be completely thrown out. So I want to hear your thoughts on that. I want to hear the audience thoughts on that. And then on the other hand, we are hearing from those who said, well, there was a bench warrant out for his arrest. There was a bench warrant, out for his arrest because he missed his court date. So we have to follow the due process, right? So I'm not sure, Lennon, if that is the sense that you've been getting from everything we've been listening to from since Saturday. But as I welcome you to the program, I'd like you to go ahead and begin sharing your thoughts on this.
Yeah. Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to your listeners. Let me know if you hear me clearly, okay?
Yes.
So there is always argument when there is not clarity, and that's what the courts are there for, to clear things up. However, in Dr. Thomson Fontaine's case, and not just the case, in any legal matter, first of all, if there is suspicion of a crime, if there is enough evidence of a crime by an individual, it's the police duty and responsibility to make an arrest. And through the arresting process, through the investigation, at charge can be filed, and the individual is required to show up in court. That is normal procedure. So based on that procedure, the police, of course, is doing what they're supposed to do in terms procedurally, I should say. So if anyone, I'm not even talking about Dr. Thomson Fontaine, if anyone is charged for a crime and summoned to the court and does not appear in the court has a responsibility to put in an arrest warrant for that individual for one, skipping court, and two, it's a violation of the rules. That is just procedure. So if we look at it in Thomson Fontaine's case, that is what they're doing. The other side to the coin is we had a situation where a couple individuals from a political party had been charged for trying to overthrow a government, whether it's bogus or not. Most of us, based on appearance, seeing that it's basically a bogus charge. I mean, that's our conclusion. That's my conclusion. And the bigger question is there were several individuals, not just Dr. Thomson Fontaine, the opposition leader, Edison James, and a couple of the UWP members, including the current Speaker of the House. And Dr. Thomson Fontaine went about his duty. So if you look at it based on a procedure, if he didn't appear to court and he was summoned, whether it's a bogus charge or not, then it's the court's right to put in a warrant for his arrest for not showing up to court. Now, the court doesn't necessarily say it's a bogus charge until there is evidence presented. And if there's evidence presented, then there's two things. The DPP can either say, hey, we don't have enough evidence, let's throw the case out. Or the judge can say, you know what, there's not enough evidence, stop wasting people's time, and throw that case out for want of prosecution. So there's lots of procedural matters that can go through. The embarrassment is the fact that there are individuals who had been charged for the same attempted overthrow. They have been dragged into court several times without any conclusion. And one individual who is currently the speaker never showed up in court. So my question is, why wasn't he issued a warrant for not showing up to court when he was also an accomplice in whatever charge you want to call it, whether it's bogus or not? Why is he now the Speaker of the House not been arrested, not been charged, and the public had not explained that? So my question is, there are three sets of situations here. There's one, an individual who had been summoned to court who never showed up. He jumped ship and now he's the Speaker of the House. Two, there are a couple individuals who had been dragged into court for years, spending taxpayers' money, trying to prosecute the case. Up to date, there's not a conclusion. And three, there's an individual who went about the responsibility of humanity to help a foreign country, and on his own conscience came back to his homeland and is now arrested. And you know what is even more embarrassing? After having a case of a charge for a man for all these years, he gets home and the DPP and whoever says they're not ready yet. So if you're not ready yet, why are you arresting him? So what it tells me from all this activity, that this arrest is intentional, it's politically manipulated, it shows bad on our police leadership. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against policing. I am not against policing by any means. I have had family who have served in the Dominica Police Force for years with distinction. I had uncles. One of the first police women in Dominica was my aunt. I have cousins who currently serve in the police force. I have friends who currently serve in the police force. So it's not about the police. What it's about is the political manipulation of the police force by a bunch of men who are in charge and in the position only because they were put there by an individual and they are serving him. At the end of the day, the Dominica Police Force need to understand that the people are responsible for the police force. The police force is responsible to the people, and they can't get themselves be dragged into political shenanigans and matters like this.
Yeah, Lennon, and you've raised several very important points already. But I think of everything that you've said, what really is striking is the fact that the new Speaker of the House was one of the individuals who was charged with the exact same charge, and he too has seemed to completely just vacated from being prosecuted. And why wasn't he arrested in the same way that Thomson Fontaine was arrested? But before you answer that question, let's just make sure we acknowledge we have quite an audience on the Facebook Live. So we want to say good evening to Owen Prosper. Dr. Heather Peltier is here. Nice to see you. Tyrone Theophil, Leslie Charles, Anthony Simon, Meryl George, Juanita Prince, Lana Hector, Henry Sango, Derek Ra Peters, great to see you. Aldif Studio is watching, Everlasting Peter. So this is your opportunity. You know, I think there's been so much chatter back and forth, but I don't think that we as Dominicans have had the opportunity to share our views. So this is why we wanted to come on today, to ensure that you can tell us what are your thoughts on exactly what is going on with Dr. Thomson Fontaine. And I see we have some comments coming in. Lennon, remember the question I asked you, but let me take a couple of comments. Everlasting Peter says, to the police, arrest the real corrupt crooks and set the good man free. In my books, Dr. Thomson Fontaine is a potential UN Security General. Tell the world I said so. Sabina says, but they all showed up in court. He is the only one who absconded. So this is the feedback I want to hear. I want to hear from you what your thoughts are. Marston is saying, I am watching as well. Good afternoon. Thank you, Marston, for being here. Keith Joseph is watching. So your thoughts, Lennon?
Yeah. So as I said, there are several ways to look at that. And when the situation is so cloudy, that's what happens. So if I had to look from a police point of view, if there is a bench warrant set by the court, obviously the police have to do their work. But it's not just that clear cut. I mean, the following process, because that's what they're supposed to do. But the point is, from why are we in that situation in the first place? And that is what we have to ask ourselves. So even if the current Speaker of the House attended the court, he's being charged on the same matter. So the evidence they have is not just on an individual; it's on a group. So if you drop the charges against the Speaker of the House, then why are you dragging the other members to court? And why are you physically handling an individual who returned to the country who's facing the same charge? It didn't have, even if they had to arrest him, they could have easily told Dr. Fontaine, hey, I need you to show up at police headquarters, whatever. He would. But I think it's deliberate, and the excuse is the following procedure. And I think that is what's important. Let me remind your listeners. Let me remind your listeners of what happened with the Dominica Police Force, because where we are didn't start yesterday. What has been happening is a gradual degradation of integrity in Dominica in the leadership position of the police force. First of all, there was a guy who got killed in the police station in Portsmouth, Joshua Etienne, I think was his name. To date, no one has been no one has been arrested and charged with that crime. We had legal wranglings. People didn't show up to court. Police officers didn't show up to court. I'm just giving you guys a history. We had rumors of sexual harassment within the police force that was covered. We had, after Hurricane Maria, police officers ran home. They said they had to take care of their business. There was a report done by the security official in charge of the Jamaica Defense Force. To date, we have not seen that report. Right. There was recently an incident of an individual killed in the police headquarters in Dominica. To date, nobody has been charged. There is a situation where the government and the police officers had been implicated in denying an individual due process because he was an international fugitive as a citizen of Antigua, and trying to circumvent the court system to bring him back. These are the kind of activities that our police force have been involved in. There are rumors of money missing from the airport. There are rumors of money missing in several police stations. You know what? None of this is investigated. So we have a systematic problem that had been germinating for years in the police force. It has become too politicized. And as I said earlier, I have friends who work in there. As a matter of fact, some of the folks who are in the top went to school with me, sat on the chairs with me, sat on the benches with me. So I know who they are. And people do talk, but the problem is there is the individual who's in charge is not serving the country. And the problem is, if you are serving one master who you think put you in a position that you would not have otherwise, then what do you expect? The solution is the people of Dominica need to understand where we are is not a good place. And we are not going to get better until people say enough is enough. And there should be a loud call for a commission of inquiry into the police force because of what I have mentioned to you earlier. So what you've seen right now is Thomson Fontaine being harassed, being abused. The use of force, the use of the police system to abuse a guy because he's not supportive of the government. We have seen several cases where people have been charged. There's racketeering going on in the labor department, $500,000. There is money that has been found in houses and places. Why have these people been arrested? The situation is because they are supporters of a political party. We can't stoop to that level in Dominica where justice is partial, where the laws and the courts and the police system is used to harass people who have a difference of opinion. And as we talk about Thomson Fontaine, the problem is not about Thomson Fontaine. Let me let Dominicans understand. We have an individual who's in power, right? He's charging the state $64,000 in rent, right? He has a salary of about $12,000. Between he and his wife and the security, every police officer that secures the prime minister is a cost to the state. So if you have a police officer who's paid $2,000 a month and he has 10 police officers as security, you guys can do the math. So all the talk we've been talking about $64,000 rent, we are not even including the benefits for travel. We are not including his salary. We are not including the amount of police officers that are paid a salary to secure him. So that tells you the amount of cost this guy, and
So,
as a result, you expect people in the country who you are supposed to manage to say absolutely nothing about it. You expect people to not question your governance. And I think through that questioning, the police force is being used to abuse and harass people. And
So,
that's
so
what
it
it is.
almost sounds like the police force is an arm of the Labour Party, but we are seeing the comments are coming in, and of course, we are here to engage with the audience this evening. So, Keith Joseph says, I'm sharing some same views with Lennon. This is nothing but the truth. Marston Edwards, to say he absconded is a very malicious and evil statement. The man has a job in South Sudan, which isn't a stone throw away. Stop that hate over politics. Thompson is an honorable and noble man. Hermina George, too much injustice. Francis Fontaine, Harvey, thank you, Lennon. You said it best. Nalda is also watching. So I think Lennon as well, a conversation that I'm not really hearing that is just as important is about human rights in Dominica. We have to talk about the condition of the cell where Thomson Fontaine has been held from since Saturday. Because from what I understand, it is quite an inhumane situation in terms of just where he's being held. And I know folks are going to be very quick to say, well, he's just another Dominican, so he should not be given any preferential treatment. But that speaks to human rights in general in Dominica. So just because you're arrested, you haven't been convicted, you should be thrown into a cell and treated inhumanely.
Yeah, and that is the other thing. The police is not there to cast judgment. The police conducts an investigation, they make an arrest. The only time judgment is cast is in the court. So even if you are arrested and charged, that doesn't mean you are going to be guilty because you have to go through the court process. And several years ago, we had an individual who was arrested by the police officers. He got shot underneath his bedroom in Maho, and as a result, he lost his leg. And the Dominica Police Force, the Commonwealth of Dominica Police Force, was an individual was sued for, I think, over 100 or $400,000. There was another individual, a classmate of mine, who got beaten by the police, and he received some money from a lawsuit. What that tells you is, if you are arresting an individual, your responsibility is to arrest. Anytime you injure somebody or put them in unusual punishment, you are actually applying punishment without due process. So to be fair, no one should be put. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you're Thomson Fontaine or a local man on the street or somebody who is a thief. No one should be put in a cell that is not fit for human use. And even the situation with Slobby, who was killed in the police in the police cell. How many people you have heard are given a death penalty for stealing $20 or stealing $30? Nobody's given a death penalty. So if you arrest an individual and he gets to the station and you're already punishing him, that is illegal, whether he committed the crime or not. And if at any point he died, then that means you basically arrested the guy and sentenced him to death without due process. And that is what these guys have to understand. So at the end of the day, whether it's Thomson Fontaine or not, we have to understand these are people with brothers and sisters and family, and they are human beings, and you treat them as such. So that doesn't just go for Thomson Fontaine. It's a systematic problem that have been festering in Dominica for years, and the problem is our citizens are quiet. And when it was Slobby, they stayed quiet. When it was Danny Luge, who had been picked, imagine a parliamentarian picked up in his constituency, harassed, no arrest, no charge, taken to headquarters, and nobody, only a few people came out to speak. And I'll be frank with the Dominican and the listeners. I think we are so selfish, and unless it happens to us, we say absolutely nothing. Unless it happens to a family member, we sit by because it doesn't affect me. It's not my problem. That is the culture we have in Dominica. So as a result, this incident are allowed to fester, and now it is hitting home with Dr. Thomson Fontaine, as hard as it is. But we have to ask ourselves a question. When are we going to stand up and say enough is enough? We don't have to be violent. We don't have to fight the police. But we have to come out in large numbers and let them understand Thomson Fontaine has support out there. As a matter of fact, I think on Sunday, as soon as the gentleman was arrested, the civic communities, the churches, the political parties should have called an emergency meeting. And by Monday, everybody in Dominica should have flooded the police headquarters. It could be peaceful, demanding the release of the individual. Because the police force of Dominica have to understand first, their responsibility and their oath is to serve and protect the public. That is their responsibility. Anything apart from that, it's a violation of that responsibility.
Yeah, and Lennon, Alvin just joined us. Alvin, I do apologize. I came on a little bit earlier because I wanted to make sure that we jumped in while we were waiting for the update on the ground. So thank you for being here. I know that you're driving. I'm not sure if you can speak while you're driving. Please give your full attention to the road. Keep your eyes on the road and talk to us. Can you hear us?
I think he's on mute.
Are you muted? No, he's not muted.
Oh, he's not.
Let's see. One more try, Alvin. Let's see if we can hear you. While we're waiting for Alvin, let's take some comments. So Louisa Jean-Pierre Thompson is appearing in court at the moment. There are live protests outside. Yes, there should be. Jennifer Christmas, good afternoon, Houston. So sad to see how some of our citizens are being treated. I'm disappointed. Enough is enough. Yanni, that's not right. Marilyn Alcindor, I'm angry because 20,000 people should be out on the streets right now. Hermia George, well said, my brother. Simeon Joseph, great to see you. Too quiet. Too quiet. Jennifer Christmas James, they would have never done that if he was a Labor supporter feeling upset. Jennifer Christmas, enough is enough. Dominicans need to come out in large numbers like the French countries. Everlasting Peter, right on Lennon. Janine, where are the Dominican coat of arms? Hermia, stand up. Clyde Gregoire, if he is Laborite and not arrested, then that further implicate the government. And Lennon, I think that is why people are up in arms, because it just seems there is one set of laws for the supporters of the Labor Party, and then there's a different set of laws for everyone else.
Yes,
I
there is.
think that is why people are so upset. And it seems like the police department is just an extension of the Labour Party instead
Well,
of being
it's
completely objective.
it's not. It's not even the police department. I think and like I said, wrong is wrong, right is right. It doesn't matter who's doing it. And it's sad that it had to take Dr. Thomson Fontaine for people to get mad. I just gave you several examples. I mentioned the individual who was killed in the police station in Portsmouth. I mentioned people who had been smuggling, and countless amount of Haitians who have died on the Dominican waters for smuggling individuals. I mentioned the state paying over $500,000 for lawsuits for police abuse. One individual from Maho got shot underneath his bed. He lost his leg. Another individual got beat and the state got sued. There's another individual, Slobby, whether he was a thief or not, nobody has gotten a death sentence in any court for stealing $20 or stealing a fig. You don't do that. And the problem is, and I said it again, our people are silent in the face of injustice. It doesn't matter who. And then when it hits home, then we get into a row. But what has happened over the years is we have allowed this to fester to the point where the individuals get entrenched. I am telling you, I have friends in the police force. I have friends who are in very high places in the police force. We sat on the bench together, and I can tell you this much. The police commissioner currently, by his public utterance, displays an individual who does not have the competency and who do not have the capacity to be in the position he is. But you know what happens? Anyone who wants to be a dictator doesn't employ anybody who is brighter than them and who has a higher potential than them. You know why? Because it makes them look really good. And Thomson Fountain is being abused. He's an accomplished individual. He doesn't need Dominica. Dominica needs him. But you know what? The individual who's in charge of Dominica only appoints and put people in places that he know will worship him. And there are individuals who are in high position, and the only reason they are there is because they have been put there by an individual who owes them something, who owes them something, or he owes them something. And guess what
Yes.
happens? He pulls the strings, and that is what it is. I mean, we can mince words about that. My problem is it should not have gotten to this point before people get outraged. Dr. Thomson Fontaine should be the last person in Dominica to be abused and arrested in that manner. If we don't stand up and do something about it, fuck it about. Because if an individual of that caliber is arrested and manipulated and physical hand and Dominicans
Right.
does nothing, then imagine me or
The average
imagine the
person.
average person on the street. What kind of justice they're gonna
But
get?
Lennon, I think what most of us are thinking is, what was Thompson Fountain thinking going back to Dominica? I mean, didn't he see that that was going to be the outcome, that he was
It,
going to be arrested? Or do you think, and I'm hoping to speak to Thompson at some point, full disclosure, he's a friend of mine. He's been a friend of mine for the last 30 years. So at some point, we will have a conversation. But I'm just curious, didn't he see this coming? Did he think that, okay, I know he knows that he would have been arrested, but I'm not sure he thought this through in terms of the extent of what would happen to him with regards to spending all these nights in the cell. And I'm just really hopeful that he is released today, because if not, I mean, Dominicans have to take a stand, because this will be going now on 3 days that he's being held. So do
well,
you
well,
think he saw this coming?
well. Here's the deal. For one, Dr. Thomson Fontaine is a Dominican. In my book, he has done nothing wrong to violate anybody, to harm anybody, and commit any serious crimes in Dominica. Because as I said earlier, the case that he's been arrested for is being tried in the court. It has been tried in the court. There are individuals who've been going to court, and up to now, there is not a judgment, there is not a verdict, there is not a conclusion. Secondly, Dr. Thomson Fontaine should never be a fugitive in his homeland, because the only reason he came back to Dominica is to lend his expertise, to lend his experience to the development of the Dominica. He should be embraced. Number three, you asking me that question, I could ask the same. Didn't the people who support Dr. Thomson Fontaine, the members of the UWP, the people of Grand Fond, didn't they know he was coming back to make sure? We all knew that there was a warrant for him. Where was the support to meet him at the airport, to ensure that the police police would not be doing what they did to take the photos to make sure that he's properly taken care of and not handled as he was. Where is the support? Where is the support of the Dominican people? He has every right to come back. And furthermore, why would you have a cloud of an arrest hanging over your head for the rest of your life, being afraid? You can't be afraid if you're not wrong of anything. I can't be afraid to speak the truth. I can't be afraid if I can't be afraid of the police if I am not guilty of any crime. I can't be afraid if I haven't done anything. You're only afraid if you know you have done something. And if Dr. Thomson Fontaine knew he didn't do anything, there's nothing to be afraid of. You know what? There are many people in the Bible, there are many people in history who have been persecuted and they were not afraid. I think the only thing that's going to come out of this is it's going to make Dr. Thomson Fontaine stronger. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. You think he should have gone into hiding because he was afraid he was going to get arrested? No. And sometimes in the face of injustice, in the face of manipulation, in the face of dictatorship, we have to stand up. We have to stand up and face whatever as long as we know we are just. And anytime you have fear, that is what they depend on. And I think the biggest issue is not whether Dr. Thomson Fontaine should come home, whether knowing that he was going to get arrested. Dr. Thomson Fontaine should come home. I think the people who was involved that protest action or that democratic protest action should stand up and support Dr. Thomson Fontaine to ensure that his rights are not violated and to ensure that he's treated as the respectable Dominican that he should be. Let me add one more piece. There was a guy who was in Dominica for several years, strolling around with the government, living a high life in Dominica. He was an international fugitive. Right now, he is spending life imprisonment in Iran. There are several individuals criminal at that our country gave diplomatic passports. And you telling me that Dr. Thomson Fontaine, a Dominican, is returning home and he's being treated like this? I'm telling you again, if Dominicans don't come out and support this guy, that is the issue I have. People need to understand it's only together we can stop what is happening in Dominica.
Yeah, guys, and I really want to thank Lennon, but this is really our conversation because I think it is so important that you have an opportunity to share your thoughts on what is going on. So I want to make sure that we are engaging with you. Janine says, so right now Dominicans have 65,000 labor rights and 5,000 UWP. Keith Joseph, Doc, be aware a $2 million wall is under construction as we speak around the PM House in Vegas. Glenda Shillingford, good evening. Great to see you. Janine, when he died, he cannot go with the money, wall, house, or anything, just empty hand. Yanni, exactly. If it can happen to Dr. Thomson Fontaine, worse could be you for us regular people. Sabria Senhouse, my sister. Oh yes, Simone, that has always been the case. The cells have been in a deplorable state. And mind you, Sabria Senhouse was a lawyer in Dominica, so she would know the cells have been in a deplorable state for as long as I've known, especially in the out district stations. Again, that's an issue that some defense lawyers use in the defense of their clients. As you can imagine, some accused persons will confess just to get out of being kept in these deplorable conditions. Lennon, are you listening to this? What about those who don't have counsel? Big human rights issues. Sabria, thank you so much for that. Nathan, good question. Janine, but they did not do that with Ambrose George. Sam Hill, just now, Dr. Fontaine has been granted bail. Hallelujah. Praise Jesus. Thank you, Sam, for the update. Marilyn Alcindor, he has all his rights to go back to his country, but not on a weekend. That was where I was going next, Lennon. On the weekend, I was just stunned. My mom, Medina, said I was watching and listening. We stand with Dr. Thomson Fontaine. Let's just take a couple more real quick. Derek Rapp Peters just said that the people are being continually deceived. They go support the struggle, but when they stand against the oppressor and when the table turn, it's all a different story. We are fed up of being used and abused. I have seen the struggles of the 70s, seen what is happening now. Do you remember Philip Timothy What did he do for? We need real leaders, those who lead by example, not in mere words, but indeed we are patriots. We believe and acknowledge. So I'm going to come back to your questions and your comments, so keep it going, because that is what we are here for. We are here to engage with you, to see what is on your mind as it relates to the arrest and now the bailing of Dr. Thomson Fontaine. So Lennon, what do you want to comment on?
Well, it should not be just bailed. I think it's about time they drop these charges and move on. And I'm saying again, why? What is the reason for Joseph Isaac not being charged on the same charge? What is the reason for? I mean, we have individuals, as I said, who presented themselves in court, and if they've been in court for years, then the files and all that information should be there. It tells you they're not ready. It tells you they are a joke. And somebody said he shouldn't come on a weekend. He should come to Dominica anytime he wants. If an international fugitive can be liming around with the government because yeah, Thomson Fontaine can come to Dominica anytime he wants. I think it's when this is over, he doesn't have it over his head. What is the problem right now is the abuse of authority, and Dominicans have to understand. And as I have said before, the responsibility for governance is not only dependent on the government. Let me get back to why we have a constitution, because all that falls into why we're having this discussion today. We have a constitution because it's an agreement for our coexistence, and we send representatives for this constituency to make amendments for us because we all can't show up in parliament to make the rules. So we have representation, and when they make these rules and these laws and they have the police officers in there, it's an unspoken agreement that we all should abide by the constitution. We all should abide by the rules and the laws. But guess what? Some people believe because they're in power that their followers and friends can skirt the law and get away with it. It should not be the case. And this is not a Labour versus UWP versus freedom issue. This is an issue of our coexistence. This is an issue of why we should live together. Let me put it that way. You and I are neighbors, right? And I don't have a property boundary, but we have a marker there. And one day you come and you move your boundary in 2 feet further. I didn't say anything. Next year you move it 2 feet further. By the time 3 years pass, your property boundary have moved into my property. What uh, 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 instruments do I have to file a dispute or claim my property? It's the courts. So we go in there and we have a court system that basically is the mediator in our disputes. We have two ways of doing that. We can do it one-on-one, or we go through a court. So the process is necessary. The constitution is what prevents us from continuously fighting. We all are under the constitution. That's the agreement we have to live to exist. The prime minister is not above the constitution. The police commissioner is not above the constitution. The president is not above the constitution. They may have certain immunities while they're in office, but that doesn't mean that they're above the laws and the constitution. And as a result, everyone under that constitution has to be treated equally according to law. So whether you are pauper, whether you are beggar, whether you are a rich man, if you go through the process, you should be afforded the same treatment. And I know in the US it says if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you. And there are cases that are thrown out because police officers did not read their Miranda rights. You have a right to remain silent and you have a right to an attorney. There are cases that are thrown out because the officers did not read the individuals their rights. That's to tell you what the system is, how the system is supposed to operate. So if by any chance the commissioner of police and the senior officers are taking their orders from the political directorate of the country, that is illegal. And there is records to show. And I would like to remind them, in life, there is something that calls cycles, and everything cycles. And in life, there's a pendulum that swings from one direction to the next. Today is mine, tomorrow will be yours. So as citizens, we have to ensure that the laws are applied equally, irrespective of what political party you are under. And I think over the years, we have become increasingly tribal, and it's as a result of the kind of leadership we have become increasingly selfish. we have become increasingly greedy, and we only think about ourselves. I don't like I keep saying, I don't even have to speak because my heart and my soul is in Dominica. I am not there physically, but you know
Mhm.
what? As a citizen of Dominica, it's my responsibility to speak out when there is injustice, and I don't care who it is. And injustice, injustice anywhere and to anyone. Like I'm going to stress the fact because it's important for people to understand the power of governance belongs to them.
Mhm.
The power doesn't belong to the party in power. It belongs to the people. And I think Dominicans are asleep and not realizing the power of governance belongs to them.
Yeah, and
The prime minister is simply a manager of our resources. He's a manager. And if I have a shop that I own, and then my manager in my shop is wealthy as hell, and I am suffering because he's gaining wealth from my profits, I'm gonna have a problem. And we have to realize we have the strength.
yeah, yeah, and very well said, Lennon. And now that Thompson has been released, and of course we are extremely elated, we now need to turn the conversation to what's next, because it's a matter of how will he receive a fair treatment in terms of does he have to go back to court? Will he be given a date like maybe next year to ensure that he's unable to return to South Sudan or wherever else he was going next? But before we go there, let's make sure we are engaging our audience. And at Philip, good evening. Nice to see you, everlasting Peter. It is obvious that the man decided to come and face the ugly music. He is smart and he is courageous. I completely agree with you.
Of
Marilyn,
course, I
there
agree.
are men in government right now that need to be arrested, not Thompson. Jennifer Christmas, who's next? Could it have been my family member or good friend? Rosalind is listening, Sabria, because charges depend on which party you support. Janine, what about Joseph Isaac? He should be arrested long time ago. Jennifer, can you sue in Dominica, sue the government? Janine, where are the church leaders, the priest, bishop? Now is the time to speak for injustice. Hermina, Dominicans need to open their eyes and see all the deception. Let's see who else we have. Emmanuel Bertrand, great program. I firmly believe Dr. Thomson Fontaine will be the next PM. Can't wait. Yanni, thank goodness. Sabria Senhouse, they might have taken his travel documents as part of the bail conditions. And again, Sabria was a lawyer in Dominica, so she would know this very well. So that is the concern, Lennon,
Yeah.
with regards to his next appearance in court now that he's been granted bail, and what happens next.
Well, that is like I said earlier. You have several things happening, and like I said, in a normal procedure, if there is an arrest and there's bail conditions, typically they would take your passport away, and you'd have to report to a police station every Monday or some days like that. So that can be a barrier. But you know what? We have always asked for, in situations like that where there is police discord, where there is oppression, there is always a sacrificial lamb. I mentioned Nelson Mandela. I don't have many heroes, but that is one individual that I admire. I consider him my patron saint. I consider him my martyr. And here's why I do. After fighting for the rights of Black people, Dr. Thomson Fontaine is in Africa, so we can see that after fighting for the rights of Black people, spending 27 years in prison, he was arrested, abused. The jailers, they treated him like he was a nobody. You know what he did after he was released from prison? He had forgiveness. He forgave everybody. And you know why he did that? Because he realized if he had gone for blood, South Africa would not have progressed. And he made a coalition government with the guys who oppressed him. And that is what gained my respect. He was a sacrificial lamb for the freedom of South Africans. Dr. Thomson Fontaine, who is he? He's a son of the soil. He worked the farm from what I heard in Grand Fond, planted bananas. He's like any ordinary Dominican young kid who has ambition, who is talented, who is gifted, and probably who had to leave Dominica to experience his real potential. He's climbed through the ranks of not the politics, but the world of economics, working for the IMF. Compare that to the individual who we have running this country, a guy who taught me English in second form and can't have a conversation with you and look you in the eyes. I am not telling you that because I heard somebody say that. I'm telling you that because I experienced it. A guy who has who has anger issues. A guy who cannot even come and listen to the people on Q95 because he does not have the temperament to be told when he's wrong. A guy who frankly is insecure and who is weak. A guy who people know they can manipulate. So people like Tony Estefans and them can take advantage of. A guy who shelters under the state securities, the police who's amassing security among him because he's afraid to walk among the people he loves and he lead. Guess what? Thomson Fontaine is under arrest. He could have stayed in Sudan. He can be wealthy, being a PhD in economics, work for the IMF. He chose to forego that to come to Dominica to make a difference. To make a difference. And you know what we did? We rejected him. We kicked him. We arrested him. We manipulated him.
And then we wonder why so many Dominicans who are successful turn their back and never look back to Dominica.
In my book, and I've said it before, Dr. Thomson Fontaine should have come back to Dominica a long time. In my book, he has stepped up a notch. And somebody said it, he'll be next PM. He has stepped up a notch in the leadership in Dominica. And that is the man I respect for the brand.
But listen, Lennon, because we're getting news as it's coming in. So we have like breaking news coming in over and over. And my mom, who's on the Facebook Live, she's saying that one of his conditions for bail, he can't report to the media. Interesting. Sabria says, really? That's crazy. Beverly says, Medina Senhouse, he can't speak to the media. Why? Derek Rapida says, let's see. Well, how many times should we turn the other cheek? Can we love our enemies? So we go to love Satan. Janine, so what happened? It looked like his crime is worse than anybody's else. Oh, come on, Dominicans, open your eyes. And you know, Lennon, this is where knowing the Constitution comes in.
But we should.
This is where we need to start. And, you know, we're going to start having programs on knowing your rights, knowing the Constitution of Dominica, knowing what your rights are as a citizen of Dominica. Because, for example, now we're hearing, of course, we've been looking forward to speaking with him and finding out what is going on. But one of the bail conditions is that he's not allowed to speak to the media. I mean, is that something that is commonplace? Sabria is on the live. Maybe you can let us know, Bria, in your experience. Is that something you've come across?
I don't know, but I think we'd have to examine the constitutionality of that and what rights an individual have when they're on the bail. That sounds like something out of Russia and China, and we know who our friends are. We have police officers who are now going to China to do courses in policing. So who knows what kind of techniques they have been getting from this country. Anytime you're telling a guy, I mean, if you are charged in any criminal activity or suspicion of a crime, your lawyers may tell you do not speak to the media without them being there, so that you don't implicate yourself. And people have done interviews many times when they are charged with a crime. They just make sure they have their lawyers in there so they do not implicate themselves. I don't know if that is constitution. That is constitutionally one of the things you can do with a bail, but you're right. And I've said over and over again, how can you live in a society and do not know the laws that govern you? How can you live in a place when the laws that are created for you, you're ignorant? We have to do better. And that is part of the ignorance we have had over the years. We have a constitution, and probably 70 to 80% of Dominicans, or probably 90% of Dominicans, have never even seen or read the constitution. They don't know what it's like. And it's basically your legal agreement to coexist. And if you have an agreement, me and you have an agreement, and you never read it, and I tell you owe me $100,000 and you pay me, and I say yes, you owe me $100,000, where you only owe me $10,000, that is on you for not knowing what the terms and conditions.
And we saw the same thing with the insurance claims after Hurricane Maria. But that many of us did not read the policies and come to realize we were underinsured.
That is what happens. So in a situation like that, what we have to do is and there is a bar association in Dominica. I don't know who these people are. I don't even know what they're made of. But it's sad that we have so many lawyers in that. Can you imagine if you have a country? Let's say we just had the H1N1 coronavirus. Can you imagine if you have doctors in Dominica and coronavirus comes and none of the doctors are saying anything? Can you imagine when the virus was coming to Dominica, the hospital shut down, the nurses went to hide, and the doctors are silent and says absolutely nothing, and people getting sick, and when you look for them, you can't find them. Can you imagine what would happen? So how then do we have legal situations in Dominica and the bar association is silent? How
Yep.
then do we have things like that and there is no clarity as to what the constitution and the law says? How
Yeah.
then do we have things like that where we have injustices, where we have manipulation, where we have violation of our constitution, and the bar association does not see it as important to come and clarify or to give Dominicans that information they need?
Yeah,
And that's
and it
that's how
looks like
terrible it is.
Sam Hill is saying there was a gag order placed on the entire case, right? So I'm just wondering how common does that happen that we place gag? Because I've never heard of a case in Dominica before where a gag order was placed on the case.
But
Maybe I'm just ignorant. So I'm hoping someone in our
and
audience can let us know if gag orders are very common in Dominica.
and I'm speaking I don't know what the case is, but out of common sense. Like I said earlier, Thomson Fontaine was charged along with Lennox Linton, Edison James, Joseph Isaac. The case has been in court for how many years now? So all that information, all that evidence they have should be the same evidence they have on Thomson Fontaine. So I don't know at this point what is the purpose of a guard order, except to just to shut him up. That's the only reason I can see, because you put a gag order on a man that you should have had all your you had ample time to do all your investigation, to collect all your evidence. You have had more than 4 years. Thomson Fontaine doesn't have to be there for you to collect evidence, because you are already charging people for the same crime. So if you were bringing them to court, that means you have enough evidence against them. So therefore, if he was charged in tandem with these other individuals and the case is already public, I don't understand what the gag order is for, because everybody knows what the situation is. This is just another case of abuse of power, and it seems like we are patterning ourselves like Russia and China in Dominica right now. And I will say again, the people of Dominica need to stand up and understand it's not Roosevelt Skerritt's court, it's not the police commissioner's court, it's the people's court, it's the people's police department, and we have to put a stop to that now, or we are going to be lost.
Yeah, and Alvin, I'm happy you were able to join us. I truly apologize. I had you running in circles today because I put the time a little bit earlier. So let me humbly apologize for putting, but I figure we might as well go live when we were waiting for the results. I'm sure by now you've heard that he has been granted bail. But then the question, it begs the question, how much longer will he have to stay in Dominica until the case is called? So let's just get your thoughts on everything that has been going on, Alvin. Thank you for joining us.
Well, Simon, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Simon, first of all, let me apologize, of course, and again say thank you for inviting me on this platform. It's always a privilege and a pleasure. I see my good old friend Lennon is there. Good to see you, my brother. It's
Hey,
always good.
what's the
It's
old place?
okay. I see my young friend there, my good young friend. It's always good to share those platform with persons like yourself. So
Thanks, man. I
indeed,
appreciate
it's
it.
a privilege for me. And to our many listeners who are listening right now, I say a pleasant good evening to all of you. Um, I think, Simon, as I've said in the past, that platform is indeed uh, an ideal forum to educate our citizens in Dominica and Dominicans at home and abroad in terms of what is taking place. Yes, I heard the results, and you're right. But even before I make a comment on that, I would like to pretty much um, give what I would say my own personal view on the overall scheme of things as I see it unfolding in Dominica. Um, I think by and large, if you ask me, this is not a matter that I even think we should look at it from a Thomson Fontaine issue, Dr. Thomson Fontaine. Dr. Fontaine just happens to be the individual now. Like if I may use an analogy, it's
Yep.
like he's the
Symptom
Jesus
of
Christ
logic.
carrying a cross, but he's paying the sins for the entire country. It's bigger than Thomson Fontaine.
Very much.
What I see happening, and what I'm sure Lennon and yourself and several other
Oh,
democracy is being challenged. The extent to which democracy is being um, um, the rule of law is being violated. I mean, there are several incidents that one could point that shows the direction in which this administration has been going. Thomson Fontaine is one, but he's not the only one. You had Sam Christian, who was arrested and brought before the court for some arbitrary whatever it is. Johnson Boston was arrested at some point. Danny Lugie was arrested at some point. So clearly, anyone who speaks to or opposes the views or speaks on the wrongs of the government are seen as a threat. Then we see in Parliament, where we have in our constitutional framework, we have what is called a parliament. We have elections, persons are elected by the people to represent the people in the parliament, which is part of our constitution and our structure. And we see how whenever the opposition is never given an opportunity to articulate their views in parliament, to express their views on matters as it affects the country. It's either they're not given time to speak, and if they're given time to speak, they're ridiculed. And if they're not ridiculed, you call the police in parliament. We've never seen that before in our history, Dominica, where the police enters the parliament and escort out of the parliament a member of parliament. We've never seen that. In the parliament, there is one officer, the coat of arms, and he's one officer. If, of course, something is going on really unruly, then the speaker will ask the coat of arms to have this member. But we saw police officers enter the parliament armed to escort persons who are elected to represent the people in parliament. So, and we have seen how the rule of law has been just thrown aside. The prime minister, in his own words, says no law, no constitution will prevent me from doing what I got to do. The prime minister, in his own words, says, well, later he's talking about that. Later, I don't know who run things. I run things. So clearly, I think it gets to the point now where I think this Thomson Fontaine, as I said, it's Thomson's my good friend, and I'm disturbed. I was distressed. I was unhappy with what transpired with him over the weekend. But I think it's a much bigger picture than that. And I think it comes to the point now where we as Dominicans, at home and abroad, need to call it for what it is. It's no longer a partisan issue. It's no longer a labor issue, a freedom issue, a UWPC. It's an issue where our fundamental rights and principles, and it even extends as well to the question of the United Declaration of Human Rights under the UN Charter. The UN speaks clearly on the question of the violation of one's civil and political rights. And Dominica, who is a signatory to the Charter, the UN Charter on Human Rights, need to understand clearly that what they're doing is in direct contravention to the UN Charter on Human Rights. We see the Wednesday walk. Person have been told that if you walk, you'll be charged. All of this, Simon, points into a much bigger picture. And I think we now need to step back. There is no room for silence. Silence is consent. And for us to speak to the issue and let the government understand in a democracy what we currently have That's not how business is conducted.
And I'm happy you said that, Alvin, and I'm happy that both you and Lennon have been talking about the Constitution, because I think this is the opportune time to focus in and zone in on the Constitution. And I think that is the only way that we can ensure that Dr. Thomson Fontaine is not going to be victimized in terms of when that case can potentially be called, because I absolutely see it possible that they will give him a court date of next year to ensure that he is unable to return to his job, that he potentially loses his job, and it is quite unfortunate. So the Constitution that we've been talking about for this long, that many of us even see I certainly hope that his lawyers are paying very close attention to ensure that the law is followed to a T, to ensure that he is not going to be victimized just because of his political stance. Lennon, your views?
Well, Simon, if the politicians want to ensure that Dr. Thomson Fontaine stays in Dominica, that's a good thing. Because I have seen an individual pay $50,000 to Lovely University to get a PhD and come down to Canefield Airport with red carpet and celebration. So if Dominicans are so excited and labor rights are so excited, and I don't want to make it a labor office, whatever, about somebody buying $50,000 to get a PhD, then they should be really excited that Dr. Thomson Fontaine is no longer going back to Sudan and he can stay in Dominica and make a meaningful contribution to his country, because that's where he belongs. And I'm saying that with a certain level of sarcasm, but I am serious in the sense that these are the kind of people we need. If you can have this guy who worked for the IMF fixing everybody's problem, and here it is, we have been selling passports and doing nothing else to raise revenue, then we need people like Dr. Thomson Fontaine to be able to develop Dominica. So if the government wants to keep him here and let him lose his job, then I think the right thing to do is Dominicans should rally around this guy to ensure that in the next election he becomes the prime minister of Dominica. That is what, and if that's what it takes. But you know what? There's an old saying, when somebody gives you lemon, you make lemon juice. And if that's what they want to do, then I think what they are looking for, they will get it behind Dr. Thomson Fontaine.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Alvin.
No, I absolutely agree with Lennon with that that analysis of it. I personally agree with him. I mean, and that is the most frustrating part of it, and what makes a lot of us so who knows the value of this gentleman and what he can bring to our country, makes it so frustrating to see the manner in which he's treated. This is not a common criminal in any stretch of the imagination. This is a well-educated son of the soil who can, in a very meaningful way, contribute to the development of Dominica. And to be treated in that manner is so outrageous, to say the least. So I agree. If that in itself will allow Dr. Thomson Fontaine to remain in Dominica and be that voice to help us now protect our democracy, then so be it.
No, let me ask you this, Alvin. So should we have international observers to ensure that, the process is followed? Because you did an excellent job of reading up on some human rights declarations. So would that be your recommendation? Absolutely. To ensure that we involve the international community on this particular case?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Simon. As a matter of fact, I think now, based on where we are going, I think the time is right for us to chronicle and document all of those cases that touches on the question of fundamental rights, human rights, the rule of law, and to address those things in the international forum. I think we need to do that. I think we need to report those matters to the United Nations, to the OAS, and all the other various organizations, and point the picture, because as I said, Simon, it's not an isolated incident. There is a pattern. there is a pattern in which the way in which this I'm not even sure we can say that they're governing anymore, because governments govern. I'm not even sure we can use the word and say, well, look, they're governing. I think we lost Simon. You know, you there, Len?
Yes, I am. Can you
I
hear me?
think we lost her. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
it's from my end or her end. She dropped. Yeah, maybe she'll come back on board in a while. But
you absolutely right.
yeah,
It's a pattern of behavior
No, I'm here.
that
You know, that's the internet for you. Let's carry on.
yeah, I know the same thing.
Just
No,
keep
so-
talking. You guys have been with me before.
yeah. So what I'm saying, there's a pattern of behavior. I mean, look again, another matter that hinges on international law and that deals with diplomatic relations between countries. Look how we dealt with that. So there is a pattern. I mean, we see the police comes out time and time again and how they intimidate people. We are now a police state. Another pattern. So I think the time is right now, Simon, for us to spotlight that what is taking place in the international forum and to put a case there. This is no longer a matter that should just remain within the confines of the Dominica populace or Dominica. This is a matter that goes far beyond that. And I'll tell you what's more, Simon. We are supposed to be a member of CARICOM. We are a member of the OECS. And if you're telling me that this is how you're behaving, that in itself have serious implications for the rest of the region. So this is not a matter just isolated to Dominica. It has implications because we are a sovereign country. And the Prime Minister must understand he's not running a private entity, Skerrit and Skerrit LLC. This is not what he's running. You're running a government, an entity, a sovereign entity. So there are certain norms, there are certain laws, there are certain conventions, there's a constitution, and there are certain things that guides all of that. I mean, I'm not a legal scholar, but if you tell me that the magistrate came down to the police headquarters to effect bail and to do what is necessary, the fact that the magistrate came down to the police headquarters would say to me as a layman that she felt within herself that she had the authority to do whatever she needs to do as far as the question of bail. Otherwise, she would have not gone. She would have said, hey guys, no, I don't think that's outside my purview. I can't make it, I can't come down there, but whatever. But she went. But guess what? She went there and she was override, allegedly, I would say, by the DPP. So in my own layman view, this is a matter that was already before the courts. The individual did not appear before the court for whatever reason. The magistrate then said, well, hey, you're supposed to be in my court. Where are you? You can't disrespect my court. I'm going to issue a bench warrant for your arrest. So
and that's normal procedure. That's normal procedure.
But what I'm saying, Len, all of that has been the reason for the case to go before the court has already been dealt with from the DPP's point of view.
Exactly.
Because the incident would have first gone to the DPP. The DPP would look all of the facts for and against and say, hey, there's a prima facie reason to take the matter to court. And the matter went to court to be determined in court. So where does the DPP comes in now to even provide any sort of advice? But guess where? The DPP is taking instruction and advice from the persons.
But Thomas, here's the issue: is there were other individuals who were charged for the same rioting, for the same crime, and they were not taken to court by the DPP. They were taken to court by an individual from Trinidad. So why now is the DPP involved when she was the DPP is the office had not been involved for the past few years in the same case? which is ridiculous. I
So,
mean, you don't have to be a legal scholar to ask questions. The Constitution of Dominica was not written for legal scholars to understand and just for legal scholars. It was written for everyone under the sun, under the jurisdiction. So there are simple processes. There are stuff we have to ask questions. Intelligent enough to
exactly.
have observation and ask questions that make sense and what that doesn't make sense. So
Exactly.
if you have a charge against Simone, Alvin, Lennon, were charged for the same offense, and I went away to do whatever, and you issue a bench warrant, which is standard procedure. You didn't show up the court. Obviously, there's going to be a warrant. And Simone through the I don't know what other evidence they're going to have, except the evidence should match the group of individuals, unless they were charged separately and tried separately. But they were charged as a group. And how we know that is because Edison James, Lennox Linton, and the others came to court the same time, answering to the same charges. So how then the DPP is not involved in that case, but yet they involved in Thomson Fontaine case? It makes absolutely no sense. And knowledge of the Constitution. Alvin, before you came, I draw a reference to the coronavirus situation. And I ask, can you imagine coronavirus comes to Dominica? People dying, and the doctors, the nurses, all run and hide, and they close down the hospital. And people getting sick, and all the ones who are responsible for health in Dominica says or do nothing. What difference is that from the laws and the Constitution being violated in Dominica, and the Bar Association, the legal fraternity, is quiet and silent?
Yeah.
And they're the one who should be leading the charge on
That's right.
educating the people on the Constitution.
And
But
some of them,
here we are having this conversation where
Yeah.
we're planning on starting, the education of people through Midcliffe on,
Yes.
on the Constitution, because
But
it's
Sim-
important to have these conversations.
Simon, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it in layman's term for you to understand what has been for the listeners to understand what has been happening in Dominica over the years. Some of these individuals, after they finish law school, they come and they say, thanks to the government for paying my scholarship. Thanks to the government for doing this. Who is the largest employer in Dominica? It's the government of Dominica. There is no private sector for lawyers to make any money because the economy is bad. And a bunch of these lawyers are the ones who have permission to sell passports. So as a result, the employer is Dominica. The way to make money is Dominica. So some of these people, I think, based on what I see, I'm not saying for are so dependent on the government for their livelihood that they stay quiet. So we are sick. We are a sick country legally. We are a sick country constitutionally. And guess who? The doctors, the people who are responsible for ensuring the integrity of law in Dominica is silent. Silent. Shame on these people.
But
Shame on the bar.
yeah. But I think
And Alvin, before I come to
Sure.
you, because we want to
Sure.
make sure we're having a conversation with our audience and they're actively engaged. So I
Sure.
think Nalda says it wonderfully well. She said, correct, sir. That is the point. This is not a partisan issue. I couldn't agree more. It's a slow eroding of civil, human, and constitutional rights, all for the citizenry. So Nalda, I could not have said it any better than you did. So thank you so much for chiming in. Derek Rob Peters, we are under a system of cunningness and deceit. Traps are set, so individuals need to be aware and do the right thing and make the correct moves, because obviously he knows that there was a warrant out for him. Coming on the weekend was a tough time to come to Dominica because there's no bail on the weekend. And then Gina Phillips Lewis says, time will tell. One day, Scaro and some police officers will go be begging for mercy. God's not sleeping. Time will tell. Alvin, let me come to you for your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, again, I don't think it's a question of he knowing or not knowing a warrant was issued and going to be arrested. We all know that. But there is a certain level of dignity and human relation that goes with it. Even when somebody may have committed a heinous crime, you don't have a right as the arresting officer to brutalize the individual. And the individual has a right to a trial and is innocent until proven guilty. So the point I'm making is that there is what you call discretion. The Constitution of Dominica was designed for the people. It's a people's document. It's not something out there. It's just unfortunate that many of us don't identify with it. We look at it as some technical, legalistic stuff that doesn't apply to us. But the preamble of our Constitution, the beginning of our Constitution states, we have affirmed that the Commonwealth of Dominica is founded upon principle that acknowledges the supremacy of God, faith in fundamental human rights and freedom, the position of the family in a society of free men and free institution, the dignity of the human person. Hear that? The dignity of the human person and the equal and inalienable rights with which all members of the human family are endowed by their Creator. That's our Constitution. That's a sort of preamble leading us into all the other aspects of it. So let's suppose Dr. Fontaine came in over the weekend. You have a warrant for him. Yes, you could arrest him. It does not say that the warrant, you must arrest him at 6 o'clock as he landed, or 10 o'clock, or 11 o'clock, or 9 o'clock. You have a warrant for his arrest. He's not, as I said, a criminal. You know where he's going. He's not going, is he going to hide?
Dominica's a small place. You can find him. Everybody know he's in Grand Forks.
Everybody know he's in town. He's there. Is he going to hide in the mountains? He comes in. You allow the individual a dignity. We spoke about the dignity of the human person. As a police officer, you allow him to go to his home. The correct thing to do would be, you have a warrant. You know you have a warrant and you have the right to arrest. I would imagine the correct thing to do, give the individual the opportunity. Monday morning, it is my hope that Dr. Fontaine would find himself in the courts or the police headquarters. Hey, guy, I'm here and I'm making myself available. If then he does not make himself available, you have the warrant to arrest him. You go up to Grand Forks or wherever he is, or La Plaine or wherever. Dr. Fontaine, this is Inspector Thomas. And as you know, I just want to say that, you know, we have a warrant for your arrest from the court for not showing up, whatever. But you don't tell me you have this individual who flew on a flight from South Sudan. For those persons who may not know, the connecting flight out of South Sudan to the Caribbean, I'm sure, must have gone through London, possibly. So we're talking about maybe at least a 12, 14 hours flight.
Oh, yeah, whole day.
He may have started flying since Friday or whatever, overnight and the overlay. When you're flying on those long international flights, it's always advised that you don't even fly with your legs down throughout the flight because of the nature of the flight, your whole body chemistry and everything. And this guy landed after that long haul flight. And then you approach him in a very inhumane manner at the airport with guns and what and so. And then the guys complain about not feeling well with chest pain. And you take him to the hospital at 3 a.m. or whatever in the morning, rush him down and rush him back into a cell. Is that a human way to deal with somebody? Is that a dignity of the human person? That's what I'm saying, Simon. We can do better than that as a society. We should do better than that. We are called upon to do better than that. We are not, I mean, what are we doing as a society? And Lennon is so right. I mean, as an attorney, as a legal person, you, I'm sure, might have taken an oath to uphold the law, and where you see the law is wrong and it is not right, to speak to it, irrespective of what, to speak to the issue. And as I said, this is what that is happening right now in Dominica. This thing is beyond Dr. Fontaine. It is where institutions, I mean, I'm not sure if you heard Monsignor John Lewis homily during the Easter. I mean, he zeroed in on a number of those issues. And this has nothing to do with political party. Some people may choose to apply a political slant to it, but it doesn't have. It's just that the human
Reality.
dignity that we know as a people,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that is being eroded.
Mm-hmm.
And our civil liberty, our fundamental rights, our human rights as a people are being
Yeah, and let me chime in real quick because we have legal counsel on the Facebook Live. As Sabria Senos, like I said, practiced in Dominica as a lawyer. And what she's saying is, in my experience, we're going back to the gag order that we were talking about. She says, in my experience, usually when sexual offenses with minors are concerned, in this case, I'm assuming it's because the magistrate wants to ensure a fair trial because this is a highly publicized case, but I don't personally see the need for this. So, as a legal mind, Sabria, we truly appreciate your contribution. And I think I saw another comment for her. So, I want to make sure that we're enjoying the benefit of having a legal mind on the Facebook Live. She also says, but from my understanding, a magistrate came to do the bail hearing on the weekend. So
exactly,
that was not an issue. So, exactly what both
exactly,
you and Lennon have been saying. Lennon,
exactly.
over to you.
So I'm gonna get off Thomson Fontaine case for a while, just for this quick second. In addition to what Alvin said about our responsibility, and I mentioned it earlier, I'm gonna say it again. A gentleman was killed, according to the current commissioner of police. When he went there, he saw it was a homicide. I don't forget. Another individual named Slobby came to the police headquarters under investigation and questioning. And by the end of the night, he was dead, right? In the legal process, these police officers are pretending to follow in procedure by arresting Thomson Fontaine, because if there's a bench warrant, obviously you're supposed to make an arrest. But in the same process, if you arrest an individual, you cannot pass judgment because, as I said earlier, the individual has to go through the court. And it's only after a case there is an adjudication of guilt or not guilty, or the case cannot go forth because of whatever reason. The highest punishment an individual can get for any crime is death. So after you go through the legal process, you go through the case, your crime has been so grave against the society. And mark you, in the legal process, the reason why you go to prison, it's because for protection of the public is a crime against the person and the public. And when you get to prison, guess what? The unspoken agreement is the state is paying for your food, your clothing, and your rest, and whatever else in the prison. Because as a society, we agree you do not belong among us. You're violating the laws. You are a threat to the society and our constitution, our right to agree. You need to be in a prison. We will pay for making sure that you're taken care of while you're in there, right? So ultimately, the biggest punishment an individual can get is the death penalty. Here it is, there are two gentlemen. I don't even know who they are, all right? They perhaps committed a crime. They go on the investigation. They get to the police station. By the time the night is over, the guys are dead. Mm-hmm. What really happened is the policemen have enacted punishment without going through the process. You understand what I'm saying? So a guy receives a death penalty without getting a proper trial in the hands of the police in Dominica. How many people have been arrested for these two murders? Mm-hmm. You see how serious that is?
Yes.
You see how serious?
And why we have to stop seeing colors when we're having this conversation, because before you start speaking out, it becomes a political a party conversation.
That is why I'm bringing up this point. I'm taking Thomson Fontaine out of the situation. What did the public do? What did Dominicans do? And it comes back to us understanding why we have a constitution, why we have a community, and why we have laws, because typically Dominicans don't understand and don't care. So the fact that these things can happen and there is no outrage, the current commissioner of police should have been fired already. He should never be in the position he is. But nobody says anything. There is not even a commission of inquiry. As a matter of fact, there are guys who are accused of stealing in the police force and they're given promotion. As a matter of fact, when Danny Lugie was manhandled, the police officer who did it got a promotion to inspector. I met a gentleman who came to my home and he said he was going to train to the police force. He applied. And the police officer who's questioning, asking him, what does he think about the prime minister? The rules of the police engagement says that you should not be partisan because your responsibility is to ensure the peace and security of the country. The police force has become politicized because they are individuals who are put in position and given promotion because of who they support. And if the head of the institution is that corrupt, I'm telling you, then the whole body is messed up. And if Dominicans doesn't, Thomson Fontaine is a victim of this, is a victim of the disease that is affecting the police force and law enforcement in Dominica. And we are outraged now because of his caliber. But the law does not separate you by class. A crime is a crime. And if you are a pauper, you desire the same treatment through the process. And the fact that we said absolutely nothing when individuals receive a death penalty, was sentenced to death, and the country did not get in an uproar. Right now, if Thomson Fontaine can be harassed with his level and his caliber, what about you, the common man who have no ranks? I am being layman as layman can be. So if that doesn't wake people up to understand it's about time we stand up and say enough is enough, I don't know what will.
Well, Alvin and Lennon, I think we've started a very important conversation. I want us to continue this conversation, especially with the ongoing trial of Dr. Thomson Fontaine. We have to keep the momentum because I'm very concerned, we start on a conversation and then we're very easily distracted and we're off to the next conversation. So I think this is a topic that we have to stay on. We have to use the Constitution as our guide. We have to make it non-political, non-partisan, so that we can be completely objective on issues such as this. And I'm happy to have the platform to be able to do so. And I do want to apologize. I see quite a few people are now logging in. So I do want to apologize that we said we were going to be on from 7, but we came on quite a bit earlier because while we were waiting for the results of the case, we decided to come on live a little bit earlier. So I do apologize for everyone who's coming in now at this point. But always remember, you can go back and watch the entire program from the beginning if you missed any portion. And I want to make sure before we leave, we take some of the comments from folks that we have not yet heard from. We have Giovanni, and he says that is at least 18 to 20 hour flight. I think he's talking about the flight from South Sudan. Yanni, that's horrible. Alas, I wouldn't wish that on a criminal, far more for a respected citizen. Patricia Fontaine, they don't have no respect for the human race. Rosalind Rabes, why was he not kept in the hospital when he said he had chest pains? He should not have been sent back to the cell. Suppose his condition worsened. Auntie Hamelina Watson, great to see you. And Noelis Knight, an attorney at law. Very important. Thank you, Noelis, for joining us. So now we have 2 legal minds on the Facebook Live. So we appreciate you guys stopping by. So Noelis says a bench warrant, listen carefully, everyone. A bench warrant is meant to secure the person attendance for the court hearing. Exactly. There is a discretion on the part of the arresting officer to arrest the person even on the morning of the hearing rather than right away.
Exactly.
Many times, hold on. Let's enjoy the benefit of having legal counsel on the Facebook Live. Thank you, Noelis. Many times they just inform the person and accompany them to court on the day of the hearing. This entire thing was totally unnecessary and clearly deliberate. And before we continue, Monel, Omar Monel, great to see you. Noelis Knight, bravo. Sabria Senhouse, thank you to our legal minds for being here. This is what we need to hear because the average citizen does not understand the concepts of the law. So we need the Noelis and the Sabrias to come on the lives and help us to understand. So thank you so much, ladies, for being here. Alvin, I know you're jumping out of your seat.
It looked like I may have to go and start my law profession now. Thank you, Noelis. Thank you,
Yes,
Noelis.
Noelis,
Because
thank
that's
you.
exactly what I explained a few minutes ago.
Yes.
Exactly, that there was no need for that. But I guess we are coming to an end now, Simon.
Yes, yes, we'll
Okay.
wind down and we'll come back again. We'll probably come back next week.
Okay, let me just end because, as you said, we got to keep our eyes on that constitution because that constitution of ours, we have a written constitution and it encompasses a number of things. The institutions that we are supposed to have to guide how we operate as a people, the public service, the judiciary, the parliament, the legislation, you name it. Even the taxes and the services that are provided to the country all comes out to the constitution because the parliament has to pass laws. You have to go to the parliament, pass a budget, and say, well, hey, I want to spend $30 million for health or for education. So that again, if we go back to the preamble of our constitution, it says also, whereas the democratic society in which persons may, to the extent of their capacity, play some part in the institutions of national life, and this develop and maintain due respect for lawfully constituted authority. Recognize that men and institutions remain free only when freedom is founded upon respect for moral and spiritual value and the rule of law. Desire that their constitution should make provision for ensuring the protection of the Commonwealth of Dominica of fundamental human rights and freedom. Now, therefore, the following provisions shall have effect as the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Dominica. So it captures the whole question of democracy, institution, the rule of law, human's dignity, freedom, and it captures all of that. This is what makes us a people. And once we get away from that, we are going down a very slippery slope. So I think right now, there's no room for silence anymore. This is not a partisan thing. This is a matter that fundamentally touches our democracy as a people. And the sooner we can rein this thing in, and all civic society people, the bar association, the churches, the trade union, the employers federation, the youth, and bring this thing back together and bring some common sense and dignity to what we're doing as a people, we're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and before I
So
come
thanks,
to you,
Yvonne.
Lennon, well,
Thanks to your listeners for
yes,
sharing
yes.
some of
Thank
that.
you, Alvin and Shari, Brian. Good to see you. So you can see this is a very malicious act. Marilyn Pascal, I am watching from the East. Thank you for being here. So I think, Lennon, before I come to you for your final thoughts, I think we can already see where we have to go back to the Constitution. Because when you have the leader of a country saying no law, no Constitution, can stop me. We have to say, oh, no, wait, let's go back to the Constitution because this is the law that governs our land. And this is the law that governs you as the head of our country. So I'm sorry, you may think no law, no Constitution, but we as the citizens, because we are 65,000 strong and you're one person. So we as the citizens, we now have to go back and study and dissect the constitutions and engage with the legal minds like Attorney Knight, Attorney Senhouse, who are on the Facebook Live with us, and engage with our audience and say, what do you understand by what the Constitution says? Here is what the Constitution says, so that you may not be the next person who shows up at the Melvin Hall Airport and unbeknownst to you, there's a warrant for your arrest and you get dragged into the cell behind the police station. So I think it all comes down to knowing the Constitution and what are we going to do to ensure that we as Dominicans at home and abroad know our rights in Dominica. So Lennon, let me come over to you for your final thoughts as we wind down for this evening.
Based on the utterances, no law, no constitution can tell me what to do. Simon, I frankly believe there are two governments in Dominica. One that is designed under the Constitution of Dominica. And what does every government around the world need to operate? It needs security, whether through the military or the police, and it needs financing, whether through taxes or other revenue, and it needs a governing body to manage these resources for the entire country, for the people underneath the Constitution. In Dominica, I think there is a government on paper, and I think there is an unconstituted government run by Roosevelt Skerrit, who runs the largest revenue generation with some foreign entity and segments of the public service who are following that government system. There are two governments in Dominica, believe it or not. I think that government is illegal. But here's the deal. The Constitution, which is the supreme law of the country, is the unspoken agreement for all of us to coexist. And when we remain ignorant of the Constitution, when we remain ignorant of the law, our rights and our responsibilities are violated. And the only way for us to get over that is for us to inform ourselves and educate of ourselves on the agreement that is signed on our behalf to coexist. So there will be no more ignorance and no more violation of our rights. I think it's about time. The arrest of Thomson Fontaine is a symptom of the problem. And it's a problem that has been spanning several years, over a decade. And we have not, as a population, see it as our responsibility to ensure that the real government and the real constitution is what runs Dominica. The power that the Constitution gives the police commissioner is not greater than the power of the Constitution to the people. He needs to understand that. His responsibility is to the people of Dominica. And I think Dominicans should make this the straw that breaks the camel back, as some of us like to say, and realize it's about time we stand up and do what needs to be done to get our country back on the right track. It doesn't have to be violent, but I think at this point we all must come together. And I like to echo what Alvin said: the civil societies, the Bar Association, the church, the DAT, the CSA, the Port Authority understand that without the people of Dominica, the country cannot progress. And we are the ones who own the power, not the Prime Minister. And we need to get back to the point where we are responsible for our country and our development. Until we get to that point, I think we are absolutely going nowhere. And with all this talk, I would hope that every one of us can influence our friends, our close relatives, and people to understand why it is important that we play active role in our growth and development, and to respect the Constitution that we all live under.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we still have many questions coming in. Auntie Hami just said, what I want to know were the people that committed the crime in Roseau, were they arrested and prosecuted? And we know the answer to that. No, the guys who threw the stones were not arrested and prosecuted. Here you had Thomson Fontaine, which by all accounts, he was in the studios of Q95, but yet he's being prosecuted for this crime. So I hope, Alvin Lennon, you will agree to do this again. I want to thank you so much for making some time to help us to better understand what is going on with Dominica as it relates to our Constitution, as it relates to our rights as citizens. And the reason we have those rights is to ensure that it doesn't matter who becomes prime minister. It doesn't matter who becomes the chief of police. The law is above everyone. And everyone has to abide by the law, because what if the next person comes in and they decide, well, no, I don't like how this is done, so let me do it this way. And no, I'm not just going to persecute you. If you speak out against me, I am going to, start killing people. You have to make sure that the laws are impartial and that they apply to everyone. So I hope that you guys will join me again for another important discussion, another important conversation on the importance of knowing the Constitution. I know that is one of the mandates of, NIDCLF with Mr. Sheridan Gregoire and the rest of us. That is going to be one of our focus areas, because as we can already see, we have many people on here with so many questions as it relates to the Constitution. Peony Shirley, I see you. The Prime Minister said he run things. I hope he run things one come for him. Okay, I'm not sure. Shari, Brian, thanks, Simone, Lennon, Alvin, great information. So we want to thank the Facebook Live audience for joining us. Don't forget to share this live. Let everyone know that we are here. Again, I am Simone Matthew. This is Push Past 10. Don't forget to follow us and to click the notification button to know the next time that we go live. And with that, we say a pleasant good evening to you, and we look forward to engaging you again in another Facebook Live, YouTube Live conversation. Until then, you take care. Thank you, Lennon. Thank you, Alvin. Have a good night.
All right. Take care, Simon.
Good
All right,
evening.
then.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. See you, Alvin.
Take care.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.